I pulled up the portal, and of course it's a bunch of jargon that I do not understand, but I see something with Noma at the end of the word. Still couldn't even tell you what that word is, but that sounded cancerous. And so I just started Googling. I Googled every term I could in that medical report. And I just so vividly remember turning to my husband and I said, "It's cancer." My name is Michelle. I am a new resident of New Jersey as of December, but I have lived in New York and Maryland and grew up in Pennsylvania. I was diagnosed with stage 1 ampullary cancer in March of 2023. I would describe my whole cancer journey as a whirlwind. It came right after I had my first baby, just 3 weeks after, and so the diagnosis was just shocking and never how I imagined becoming a mom. And so the whole time I'm expecting to just enjoy my time with a newborn, and instead I was starting treatment, having my surgery. And so the entire thing was just an absolute whirlwind, and that whole time is now such a blur. I was getting reoccurring pancreatitis, and while I was pregnant, they ran tests and discovered gallstones. And so when they went to remove the gallstones, I was about halfway through my pregnancy, and they found the tumor. But at that time, it was benign. It was small. There was no concern. They had seen this before, and they said, "There's no reason we can't wait till after the baby is born. You're young." I mean, the doctors just weren't concerned. It was there, and it was something we wanted to take care of so that I wouldn't keep getting pancreatitis. But we were just going to wait for the baby to be born because it was healthier for the baby and myself. And so it really wasn't a discussion. We just waited. And I actually had the baby 3 weeks early so that I could have the surgery sooner because the pancreatitis just kept coming back and I was losing weight. And so we decided to have the baby early. And that is when they went to take out the tumor that they discovered it had grown, and now it was cancerous. The procedure was one of those early appointments. I had to wake up super early. My dad came to town to help take care of the baby so that my husband could be with me. And so, my baby is only 3 weeks old. And so it was actually a really emotional day because the procedure itself was only going to take half the day to remove the tumor. And so it just didn't feel like a big deal other than I was leaving my baby. And so that part was really hard. Really grateful that my dad was there. So I knew my baby was in safe hands, but everything seemed fine. And I knew I was going to be home that afternoon. And so my husband took me in, and when I woke up, that's when everything really started to shift emotionally. Things just took a big turn. It's a little groggy, obviously waking up from anesthesia. So what I can remember is that my GI doctor came in and he explained to me that the tumor had grown, and then they had to do another biopsy, and they had to call my husband during the surgery. To me, in that moment, it didn't feel alarming because I think I was still just coming out of anesthesia. Then later that afternoon, when my husband re-explained the concern on his face, the fear that I was experiencing through him, is when I started to realize this might not turn out like we thought. But at the same time, I went home and told my dad, "There's no way this is cancer." And so I remember very vividly saying those words to him. And the doctors were shocked at how much it grew. They were absolutely stunned. To the point where my doctor even apologized because he had never seen something like this before. And so they were shocked just as much as we were. And then we just had to wait for the biopsy to come back. I'm trying to enjoy my birthday, but I'm very disappointed because now I have to wait for these results. I don't know what it means. Not a very fun way to turn 35. And really sad about my diet because I had been on a really strict low-fat diet to avoid pancreatitis. And so throughout my pregnancy, I didn't get to enjoy ice cream like a lot of pregnant women and tap into those cravings because I had to be on this really strict diet. And so I was really sad about that too. I thought life was going to go back to normal after this procedure. So enjoyed my birthday the best I could. The next day, so 2 days after the procedure, I got the notification on my phone, which is not how you want to see your results, but that's my story. Um, I got that the results were in. I pulled up the portal, and of course, it's a bunch of jargon that I do not understand. But I see something with Noma at the end of the word. Still couldn't even tell you what that word is, but that sounded cancerous. And so I just started Googling. I Googled every term I could in that medical report. And I just so vividly remember turning to my husband, and I said, "It's cancer." And the doctors called shortly after. And then they explained and confirmed everything I had read online. I think that I was in shock. I remember being really, really, really quiet that night. Me and my husband just sat together. But I was still trying to figure out this 3 week old. I was still trying to figure out breastfeeding. I was trying to figure out how to feed my child still. And so we were just quiet and we just spent the night with our baby. And the next day is when we started calling people to tell them. We knew we wanted support through this. Our faith is really important. So we knew we needed prayer right away. And so we started calling people that we knew we could lean on. Everything moved very fast after. Given how much it had grown in a short amount of time through my pregnancy, they were alarmed at the rate of growth. And so even though it was diagnosed as stage 1, they still wanted to move really quick. And so I met with doctors, my team that I had been through all my original procedures with, my pregnancy team, everyone was on the same page and through the same hospital. And so they came up with the care plan. They came up with the procedure to have a Whipple surgery first to remove the tumor. And then after that, I would do chemotherapy to try to, they called it my insurance plan, to make sure that any other cancerous cells in my body that weren't detected through the test, that the chemo would just take care of everything. I was told because I was young that we'll just give you this intense drug. We'll make sure that you're good for a really long time. 3 weeks later, I was in surgery. And I had my Whipple surgery. That took, I don't even know how many hours. It was such a long day. My parents were in town, my mother-in-law, they all took care of the baby while my husband stayed at the hospital. And it took me through ICU for recovery, and I was in the hospital for a week to recover. My organs are rearranged at this point, so a lot of medicine and doctors and everyone trying to get me back to a place where I could go home. I was able to go home after a week. I recovered for 6 weeks after the surgery. That allowed me to get back to a normal diet. I had to take my time learning to walk again. I had major abdominal surgery, so I had staples all down my abdomen, and I was still postpartum. So healing from all of that at once was obviously very daunting on my body. And so they gave me those 6 weeks to recover before we started chemo. I started chemo in May, so about 2 months after the diagnosis, and I did 11 rounds of treatment. And they decided not to do the last, I was supposed to do 12. They decided not to do the last round because pancreatitis came back again. And so my body was just really tired, they think. They don't know why it came back because there was no evidence of cancer, but I was able to complete those 11 rounds. One of the hardest parts for me and my family was that I would just sleep. So I was on a regimen where I had to be in the infusion center for a whole day getting chemo, and then I came home with more chemo. So I honestly don't remember what it's called, but the port was attached and I came home with the drugs. And so that was like a 3-day cycle every other week for me. And so Friday and Saturday were still treatment days just from home, and I slept. I could not stay awake. I thought I was going to like learn a new hobby during chemo, and I slept all of chemo. And so Saturday I would go back to the infusion center to get it removed. I definitely had some nausea. I would say overall my symptoms weren't terrible. It was mostly the fatigue. And whenever I felt bad, I would just go to sleep to not feel it. And then the other hardest part was when I went to chemo every round. something that really impacted me. I'm sure it was the anxiety too of having to do treatment, but the smells started to really trigger me. And so every single time they would just clean my port scar to put in the chemo, and the smell of the alcohol swab would make me gag and make me nauseous. And so they gave me medicine to try to treat that. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And still to this day, when I smell that smell, I'm definitely reminded of the time. I am just doing surveillance right now. I'm still cancer free. I just celebrated 2 years cancer free in March, so that was a really exciting day. Um, and I go every 3 months for blood work and every 6 months for scans. And that will be my surveillance for about 5 years. Um, as of now, my only reoccurring thing, I still get pancreatitis sometimes, and they don't know why. So I take medicine for that, and it still impacts my diet, which is really sad and unfortunate, but I am here and grateful for that. But I'm cancer free, and I'm just trying to soak in every moment because I know I thought I was healthy and this couldn't happen to me, but I learned that that doesn't always matter. Um, and so I just try to soak it in. They did find a gene that I am a carrier of a gene that can cause pancreatitis. It is also a gene that can lead to pancreatic cancer. Now, ampullary cancer is not the same as pancreatic, even though they're in the same area. And my pancreas is deeply affected, but it's not the same. And ampullary is super rare. I'm still trying to find people who have it. It's very uncommon. But they did see that gene. They also believe that because I was pregnant, that the tumor could have possibly already been there. And then when you have high hormone levels and estrogen, high blood flow, all because of being pregnant, that's feeding into these quickly growing cells. And so it's possible that my pregnancy escalated the growth, which is a blessing and a curse. People talk about how my baby being born is just a miracle because it revealed the cancer. And my baby was healthy the entire pregnancy and is still healthy to this day. Survivorship is really hard. When you're going through treatment, when you're getting the diagnosis, even though there's a lot of waiting, like I mentioned, there's also a plan. It's so fast moving. You don't really have time to fully process. And so survivorship has been the hardest part for me and my husband. Just processing everything that happened, grieving what could have been, understanding really now what I went through and how just wild that is, the constant reminders. Um, every time my son has a birthday, it's the same season that all of this happened to me. And so celebrating him and his life and also being reminded of what happened right after he was born is something that I struggle with. It's definitely emotional, and I would say survivorship is way harder. I shouldn't say way harder, but it is. It's really, really challenging to cope and grieve and go through all the range and complex emotions that come. I think that my age is definitely a major factor. I never thought there's even cancer in my family, but it's always happened to people who are older. So my age was really shocking. And then also just given how healthy I thought I was. I ate fairly healthy. I was exercising. I felt so good because I was exercising during pregnancy and keeping up with it. Health is just something that I value and really like try to maintain in my life. So to know that there weren't these outside factors of unhealthy things causing, like, it just was shocking. It's not what I envisioned cancer to look like, someone my age who is healthy. I feel different, but it's hard to explain exactly how I'm different. I find that I'm just more quiet and just I always want time to process and think, and I want life to be slow. And so that's been a theme since the diagnosis, is that I want everything to just slow down, maybe so I can savor the moments. I don't know. But I'm still trying to figure out who I am after cancer. Um, it's been 2 years, but it feels like it's been 6 months that I've been on this journey of trying to figure out who I am again. And it's hard. Survivorship is challenging, and I didn't think there were enough resources, and there's still not enough, but there are some. And so I've just started connecting with different organizations, trying to seek out just support and different ways of coping, whether that's writing, praying, just talking to people about symptoms. I have one person that I met in a support group. We still chat because we keep having pancreatitis together. And so finding someone, the hope is that there are people out there who want to support and have a deep desire to help people, especially my age. And so there is community. I didn't know it during the diagnosis. I didn't even know it right after all the treatment. I think I've just found it in this kind of second year of being cancer-free, but it is out there and people want to help. I want people to know that everyone needs a lot of grace. Grace for their experience, but also grace for people who don't understand what you're going through. There's a lot of people who will never understand what I went through, and sometimes it feels hard to navigate those relationships because you so badly want them to understand and respond a certain way, but they don't know. And so it just requires grace, authenticity, and I just want people to know that they have to keep opening up. It's easy to close off and feel upset. I could be angry every day, but I'm choosing to keep opening up to people, to keep seeking and searching, not because it's easy, not because I think I've figured this out. I'm still learning who I am, but there has to be grace because this is not normal. It's just not, and no one in my life knew how to respond to me, and so I'm going to offer them that grace, just like I want the grace when there's times that I couldn't respond to your text because I didn't feel like it that day. And so giving grace is a message that I want to send.